Imagine this. The year is 1857. Indian rebels hang from the trees of Delhi. In Kenya, villagers are whipped for defying their colonial masters. And deep in the Caribbean, sugar plantations burn as enslaved men and women rise against their tormentors. The British Empire once claimed it was bringing civilization to the world, but what it truly spread was domination, greed, and exploitation. This is The Dark History of the British Empire, a story of power, plunder, and pain. Stay till the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more hidden truths history tried to bury. At its height, the British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the planet. The sun, they boasted, never set on it. From the bustling docks of London to the golden coasts of Africa and the mysterious jungles of India, British red marked the map like a spreading wound. It began in the late 16th century when explorers and merchants sailed under the flag of St. George. They came as traders, bearing silk, spices, and silver, but left as conquerors. The East India Company became the first multinational corporation with its own army. Behind the polished manners and powdered wigs was a machine built on greed. Every colony became a gear in the imperial engine. India supplied cotton, Africa its ivory and lives, the Caribbean its sugar and blood. Millions were forced to serve an empire that claimed to civilize them, even as it stripped their lands bare. But beneath the grandeur of London's palaces and the speeches of its parliament echoed whispers of rebellion, of famine, of massacres covered up by ink and diplomacy. Because empire, as history would reveal, was never about enlightenment. It was about control, and control always comes at a price. The 18th and 19th centuries, the age of empire. Britain's flag rose higher, its ships faster, its armies stronger. But behind every victory was a graveyard of the conquered. In India, after the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the East India Company tightened its grip. Taxes skyrocketed, farmers starved. The Bengal Famine of 1770 killed an estimated 10 million, a death toll the British dismissed as inevitable. For the empire, profit was reason enough. In Africa, the story was darker still. The British slave ships became floating coffins. Men, women, and children were chained below deck, stacked like cargo, gasping in the darkness. Over 3 million Africans were transported under the Union Jack, a trade that enriched Britain's cities but destroyed entire civilizations. When abolition came, it wasn't compassion that drove it, it was economics. The Industrial Revolution made slavery less efficient, and when the empire finally freed the enslaved, it compensated not the victims, but the owners, over 20 billion in today's money. Meanwhile, in Australia, convicts built colonies on stolen Aboriginal land. In Kenya, natives who resisted were herded into brutal detention camps. And in Ireland, during the Great Famine, while over 1 million starved ships laden with food still sailed to England. Yet even as blood stained the empire's hands, London's press spun tales of progress. The British believed they were spreading law, railways, and education. But to the colonized, these were shackles of another kind. Still, resistance flickered. In India, the 1857 rebellion shook the empire to its core. In Africa, independence movements whispered through villages. And in the Caribbean, maroon warriors fought for freedom in the mountains. But the British Empire was vast, and it fought back with a cold precision born from centuries of domination. Every uprising became a lesson in fear. Every act of rebellion, a reminder of power. Until finally, that power began to crack. The year was 1947. After centuries of rule, India, the jewel of the British crown, rose up. The empire, exhausted by 2 world wars, could no longer hold its grip. Independence swept across Asia and Africa like a storm. But freedom came with scars that ran deep. Partition carved India into 2 nations, triggering one of the largest mass migrations in history. 14 million people displaced, over 1 million dead. Elsewhere, the empire unraveled violently. In Kenya's Mau Mau uprising, thousands were tortured and executed in camps. In Malaysia, British forces crushed insurgencies in the name of order. In Cyprus, Ireland, and Palestine, the ghosts of empire haunted every border it drew. As Churchill once declared, "I did not become the king as first minister to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire." But liquidation came, not with ceremony, but with chaos. The empire that claimed to unite the world left it divided by language, by borders, by trauma. The sun was finally setting on the empire, and the shadows it left would last for generations. Today, the British Empire survives not in flags or armies, but in the echoes of its past, in the railways of India, the English language of Africa, and the lines drawn across the Middle East. But behind every legacy lies a wound, the loss of cultures, the theft of resources, the rewriting of histories. Even now, debates rage. Should Britain apologize? Should it pay reparations? Or has history already passed judgment? Perhaps the greatest lesson of this dark history is not just what empire took, but how easily nations can convince themselves that domination is destiny. Because empire always begins with good intentions and ends in exploitation. And as long as power tempts humanity, the story of the British Empire will remain a mirror, reflecting what happens when ambition eclipses compassion. The sun may have set on the British Empire, but its shadow still covers the world. If you found this documentary eye-opening, like, share, and subscribe, and join us as we uncover the hidden truths history tried to forget.